Fighting Neutral Podcast. I'm Aaron.
I'm Travis.
And who the hell is that?
I'm John.
That's literally the first question I have on the list.
Really?
Yeah. So John is here instead of Nick because Nick is somewhere in the Gulf of America.
Being bougie.
Being bougie and diving or something.
Oh, yeah, he's learning to do scuba diving.
Fancy scuba diving. He's like, Jessica and I tried to slow him down a little bit because this dude went like nuts. Like he's spent thousands of dollars already on the gear, and he's like he got open water certified, and then he went and got like nitrox certified and like all these extra certifications that I'm like, dude, you haven't even done it yet. Like let's just chill and actually get out in the water before
get in the water
you worry
first
about it, man. and if you all haven't been diving before, it's extremely complicated, and you have something you can't joke around about. Like you have to know what you're doing because you can die.
Yeah,
and it's serious. So it's like you don't want to like do your open water certification and then just immediately start hammering on other certifications because like it's information overload. It's kind of like, you just want to like stretch it out and learn a little bit at a time and then get some experience underneath your belt. It's that sort of thing.
a guy I used to work with at Kramer and Feldman, he does the diving class on the east side.
Yeah.
Him and his dad run a place over there, and he was telling me how crazy it is.
Yeah,
it sounds like a lot that you have to go through.
It's crazy. Like, it's just like, I can't believe it. But anyways, Nick apparently, did you hear about all of his plane travel trouble?
No.
Like, because of the winter weather, his flight got canceled, and then he had to rebook a flight. They didn't have any flights, so he had to, figure out a way down there.
I seen his Snapchat. He was on like some dingy plane.
Yeah,
tiny plane.
that's just the puddle jumper to go from the big island to the little island.
Oh, okay.
But to get down to the big island was like it was a big, huge deal. He ended up being he had to stay the night somewhere else. And then he missed the first dive because of being late. But, I mean, not his fault. There's nothing he could do about it.
Is this like where his class is taken? He's taking the class down there?
Well, it's not uncommon for you to, like, find a dive shop in your local area. Like, we're in Cincinnati, and I'm sure he went to a dive shop somewhere down there near the city. And you join the dive shop. You take the class. Some of these dive shops, not all of them, but some of them will have a pool inside where you can like put the gear on. You can get underwater. You can learn how the gear functions, and they can teach you the class for the classroom side of things. Learn all the theories and stuff. And then that same dive shop will organize dive trips with a bunch of their clients. And he is going with his dive shop down to this dive trip. Which I can't remember where he's going, Barbados or...
I thought it was, I didn't really know. I thought maybe the Bahama area or something.
It's
something nearest down there, Caribbean belt area.
He's just south of Cuba.
He's south of Cuba.
Yeah, he's on the other side of Cuba.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, he's like out there in the ocean, man. Like there's, like you start to get out towards St. Lucia and stuff.
Is that like
diving
Aruba
for treasure?
Area or something?
Yeah, he's out of the country. For sure.
Oh yeah.
But I can't remember. Anyways, since Nick's gone, we brought John in. We've been trying to get John on for a while. He's a important man, lots of things to do. So
kids,
John,
man, kids. All right, you guys need to join the club with me.
We're in the club with you.
Gosh,
the scooter club.
Yeah, it's the only thing that keeps me sane.
All right, so I got past that. Your name's John. And so the first real question I got for you, and I'll stick to in order here, even though it's not really a great order. John, how many bikes are in your garage right now?
I currently own 2. The scooter, the Honda, and then I have a S1000 single R BMW.
No dirt bikes?
No dirt bikes.
No kids' bikes?
Oh, yeah. I have Colton's Yamaha TTR 50.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a fun little bike to ride around.
Do you have any other like quads or anything?
No, I don't have anything anymore.
So it's just those
Just
bikes
the
right
bikes. Yeah, just the bikes. That's it. I want to add a dirt bike to it though,
Yeah.
just so I can go dirt biking with him.
now? Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool. But yeah, nothing yet. Just been putting all my money into the BMW
And
and-
buying speakers.
and being cool on a scooter. Now I have some sweet chaps to wear when I ride it. Thank you, by the way, for the Christmas present.
Yeah, you're welcome. man.
Yeah.
So, how old were you the first time you rode a motorcycle?
A motorcycle
Yeah.
was, I'd say 16, 17, something like that. A
What-
buddy of mine in high school had a bike, and we learned how to ride right out back of Western Hills High School.
Do you remember what bike it was?
It was like an 80s model Honda. I remember that. And it had 4 carburetors because they were always messed up on his bike. And he always had to tinker with all the carburetors. I can't remember exactly which bike it was, though. I want to say it was like a 750 or something like that. But yeah, it was just an old rust bucket bike. Pretty sure it was his dad's or somebody's.
Describe what it was like. Like, were you scared at the time?
No, not really. I rode a couple of dirt bikes before that, so it was kind of, I just hopped on it, and it was heavy. It was heavy as hell. Compared to a dirt bike, it was heavy. So, but riding in traffic for the first time was a little nerve-wracking. But that was it. I kind of felt like I just hopped on it and went from there. And then there for a long time, I didn't even have a car. I had a bike that I just rode around. And I would just ride to work every day, or I'd ride wherever I had to go.
What kind of bike was that?
I had a Gixxer 600. It was a 2005.
So you had no car, but you had a Gixxer 600.
Yeah,
You're living the life.
yeah.
Hell yeah.
Westside guy. Yeah. Priorities.
Priority straight. So how did you come into riding? Like what got you into it specifically, or did you remember like a moment in time when you were like, I want to do that, where you hadn't done it yet, but you were like, that's the thing I want to go do?
Specifically, I can remember exactly where I was when I was like, I want a motorcycle. Is when we were sitting on the metro because my mom didn't drive, so we took the metro everywhere. And a guy pulls up on a bike next to us at a stoplight, and then another guy they just kept on piling up at the stoplight, and everybody thought it was so cool. And I was little at the time, and I was like, man, those are sweet. And then I think I got a poster maybe for Christmas or something from Mom. And then that was it. I just fell in love with bikes. I never had one. My parents never had one. Nobody I know ever had one. But I just knew I wanted to ride one.
So, you know, if you were like, you saw a bike go by and you're a kid, I'm assuming, and you're like, yeah, that's the thing I want to go do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you started riding your own late teens, early 20s.
Yeah, yeah.
How do your parents, how do your family, how did they take to that, since they weren't motorcycle people?
My mom was pissed.
Was she?
Yeah, just like all moms would be pissed. I think she was more mad about my tattoo, though, than me riding a motorcycle. Because she's like, that's permanent. The bike can go away. But no, my dad didn't really care. He thought it was cool.
Oh,
I
he
took
did?
dad. Yeah, dad was like the first person I ever put on the back.
Really?
Yeah, took him out for a ride. He lost his license forever ago because of his vision. So he wanted to get on the back. And I'm like, yeah, let's go around the block.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. But yeah, Trav knows I would take my mom for rides on my Harley all the time. So we'd always pull around. She was my Barb, as Nick would say. She was definitely my Barb.
I've never had the pleasure of meeting your mom. I imagine she's something else.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Travis, she pretty cool?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's all right.
Yeah, she's all
She's
right.
different, but she's all right.
My mom is one of those people I could probably put on the back of my bike and pull up down there at the AA highway and go out with you guys to Willow.
Oh, yeah?
And she would go along with it.
Like she'd be down?
She would be down. I mean, she would be screaming a lot the whole friggin' way. And obviously I'd be going way slower,
Yeah,
but
she'd
she would
be-
enjoy it though. She would
She'd
like
be
it.
beating you in the back as
Yeah.
you're going down the road.
Yeah, she'd be giving me a massage. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And what else we got here? So what other bikes or what? Tell me. You got those bikes in your garage: the S1000,
Yeah.
the Honda scooter, and then your son's TTR.
Yeah.
But what other bikes have you owned? And Gixxer 600, we know you owned that.
Yeah, the Gixxer 600. Oh, gosh. I mean, I didn't own these bikes, but I pretty much had ownership of these bikes. I had buddies that did not care at all that I rode their bikes. So I had my buddy's 750 for a whole summer while he was out working. So he worked out of town. And he gave me the keys to it one day, and I just never brought it back down until he came back in town. And I rode that for a while. I don't know what year it was. I think it was like an '08 750 Gixxer. And after that, I had a buddy who had an old Gixxer 600. Rode that for a little bit. But then my own personal bikes, I had the SV 650. I had a Harley Road Glide. That was like a 2016. What was that last one I had?
R1.
Oh, yeah, they had the R1. Yeah. A couple bikes in there. Yeah. Then these two bikes.
I remember when you told me the story of what it was like to meet up with the whole Asphalt Junkie crew and all that stuff for the first time.
Yeah.
Tell that story again. Like, how did it start out? You met up at Travis's house?
Yeah, I think I met you. Maybe Mackenzie. Was she riding then?
She didn't go. That was a Leathers day. We went early. You had the SV at that time.
Yeah.
You had just gotten that, not too.
Yeah, and I
early
showed up in a
before.
t-shirt, I think.
T-shirt and
Jeans.
boots,
I had
probably.
I had cowboy boots on because I remember
Yeah.
my feet kept slipping off the pegs.
Yeah, well, Josh gave you a bunch of shit about
Yeah.
that, didn't he?
Yeah, Josh gave me a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
about it. I forget his last name. Cool dude there from the east side.
Sturtevant, yeah.
Sturtevant, yeah. And but yeah, I met up with all you guys, and they're all wearing their Power Rangers leathers. You know?
Well, he was giving me a bunch of trouble about it at the house
Yeah.
because I'm getting all my stuff together, getting leathered up and getting on the bike. And he's laughing at me thinking I'm a jokester.
Yep.
And then we show up down there and everybody else has got leathers on. And he's like,
Yeah.
oh,
He's the odd man out.
I'm the joker.
They had cool leathers though. They had their
Yeah.
names on them, and I was like, "That's cool as shit." These guys are sponsored. But no, I show up with cowboy boots on, jeans just like this, pretty much, and I had some cheap helmet I tossed on probably for the day because I knew Travis would give me shit if I didn't wear a helmet. Because I didn't wear a helmet until I started.
Everybody else would too. They probably wouldn't have even let you rope.
I didn't wear one until I met Trav. Probably I owned one. I think I kicked it around for a little while, but I didn't wear one all the time. But no, I show up down there with my boots on and everything, and then everybody's taking off in different, fast guys are going out first, and then, mediocre guys are going, and the new guys are going after that. And they explained all the rules, everybody's going to stop at every stop sign. Just don't worry about getting lost, and, try to keep up with whoever you can keep up with, and we'll make it to the same place at the same time. But no, it was cool, man. I got the bug as soon as I went down there. I was like, this is it. This is cool as heck. I wanted leathers that day. I was like, this is where it's at. No more doing wheelies going down Glenway Avenue, passing all the people at Thornton's or whatever I was doing at the time. Or, hot rodding through downtown or up in Clifton or something like that. But that's all we did. I mean, that's all I did for years was just go to the gas station up in Clifton. And we do the loop from there to Covington to Big Daddy's Liquor. We'd all hang out down there in the corners and stuff. That's pretty much all the riding I really ever did. That and the racetrack, because we had some buddies that were into the quarter mile racing.
Oh, like at Drag Strip.
Down at Edgewater.
Yeah, down at Edgewater.
Yeah. Yeah, my buddy Danny Atkins, he was running a Hayabusa that I don't know what it would run in the quarter, probably 7 seconds or something like that. Big hopped up bike. And we'd go down there and watch him run, but none of us would do that. We would just ride down there, just go hang out and watch him run. But I never was around anybody that rode like this, like how we all ride down there.
Yeah, I think, when I first got in a street bike, because I'd had dirt bikes were the first things that I rode, and I didn't start riding until I was in my early 20s. I was already an adult, and I got a dirt bike, and then a few years later, I ended up getting wanting to get a street bike. I was riding the street bike around, and I remember being like kind of let down with how boring it was. Because I was used to dirt biking where things can get pretty extreme pretty quick, and you can really challenge yourself and like level up as a rider, become more skilled, stuff like that. And I found street riding was like, I was like, man, there's got to be more to it than this, because it's me just like cruising around traffic light to traffic light. I was like, this is really quite boring. You don't just like go out for a drive in your car in a suburban neighborhood. Like you want to find the cool places to go and to ride. So I was trying to find that, and then I eventually got pointed towards the Asphalt Junkies, and I got to meet up with them in the spring of 2011 was the first time I ever met up with them. When I showed up, I was wearing a leather jacket, gloves, riding shoes. No, I'm sorry, I had skate shoes on. I had jeans and skate shoes, and a helmet, of course. But I felt underdressed showing up to the ride with those guys that are like full kitted out, track leathers and everything. And so I made sure to hang towards the back, because I didn't want to be that guy. So I hung towards the back, and then, if I felt like I could go faster, I would move up, so on and so forth.
See, I feel like your introduction to motorcycle riding was totally different from mine. Mine was just being a hooligan.
Yeah.
I'm just a goofy guy on a fast bike in the middle of a neighborhood.
Well, that is normal Westside stuff.
With no muffler, no license, no insurance, no nothing.
Like,
probably wasn't even in my name. I don't even know.
Bedazzled jeans.
Oh, yeah, I definitely had my rock jeans on for sure. I still got those things hanging up. Come on now. But no, mine was fun though. Like the car group that I hung out with, half of them rode motorcycles, half of them had cool cars. So like they had a spot they would meet up at. You probably know the downtown bump spot.
Yeah, down there at bump spot.
Yeah, we'd meet up down there, and you've seen how many bikes were always down there. So like ours was like we would hang out there. We were in the car scene. We had bikes. We could hang out with the cool crowd pretty much.
Yeah, and I remember that I know about that side of motorcycling where it's like more about like stunting, and looking cool and like just cruising around or whatever.
That was it.
And then just kind of generally being a jackass.
Yeah. Or sometimes we would do hide and seek on motorcycles downtown. We would pick like 4 blocks by 4 blocks, and you had to stay in that, and your bike had to stay running the whole time. And we'd pick somebody to be it. Then we'd go hide on the bikes. We'd hide down alleyways. We'd find weird places to put our bikes, up in the car parks and all that stuff. It was cool. One time I took my bike into, not the Sears Tower. What's that? What's the tall building downtown called? The one that has the lookout point at the top?
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember what it's called.
Crew Tower.
Yeah, Crew
At
Tower.
Crew Tower.
Right, yeah.
I took my bike inside of the Crew Tower. Like when they were getting rid of the mall down there and they were going to put something in there. But it was all under construction, and I just drove the bike straight in there. It's like midnight. I'm just in there mobbing around.
Didn't I hide your bike in Meyer Tool once? It was your Benelli.
Maybe.
I brought it inside. I remember that. But I was real tempted because we had an elevator.
Yeah.
I was real tempted to go put it up in the offices.
Oh, yeah, it's so tiny.
Yeah, because it's so tiny.
Oh, it would
Yeah.
definitely fit in the elevator.
But, anyways,
Put that thing in the break room. Let's go.
so when obviously you got into riding, you were a hooligan. I'm assuming you were younger at the time. You were in your probably early 20s or so.
Yeah.
And just kind of living that whole thing.
Yeah, pretty much from 18 to like 24. I was just
ripping
hooning
wheelies
it
down the
up.
boulevard and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
In that time,
Burning off my Shankos.
did you ever happen to take the basic rider course, the MSF course?
No, not at all.
Did you ever take the
Still
course?
to this day, I haven't taken the course. He knows I'm a procrastinator. I'm like, I'll just pay the extra $20 per year to get my temps, and we'll just ride on the temp. Yeah. No, so no BRC for me. It's the BRC, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the BRC.
No BRC.
Well,
I would like to do it though.
In Ohio, it's something different. They don't use MSF in Ohio. They use their own thing called Motorcycle Ohio, but basically it's the BRC.
Yeah.
So you rode like a hooligan. Mm-hmm. You've done some dirt riding. Sounds like, anyways.
Yeah.
You've ridden some Harleys and done the Harley thing for a bit.
Yeah.
Sport bikes,
Scooter.
scooters. You've been scooting. Out of all of it, what's your favorite type of riding?
Depends on what day of the week it is, really. I mean, honestly, the scooter is like up there right now. It is my favorite thing to do. It takes so many bikes and just puts them into one. I love the Harley because I can just cruise on it. It was loud, but it was loud way behind me, like 10 feet. You know what I mean? And it turns all that into like an adventure bike / hoon machine, you know, that you can just go around and do whatever you want on.
You just mob on it, or
you
can carve corners on it. You can take it off road. It kind of does it, and it's comfortable. And you can pack all your stuff on it for the day.
Hey, we know from experience you can get deep into a corner on a scooter.
Oh yeah,
like just as deep as the BMW gets into the corners.
It's strange how fast you can go on it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's surprising. Yeah, you throw the right tires on those things, and you are getting it. You're railing some corners. Yeah.
So, you've had all these different bikes and everything. Is there like a common modification that you do to like all your bikes?
Make them loud. Besides the scooter, I have no drive to make this thing loud at all. I want it to be quiet. Yeah. But like the Harley and all the street bikes I've had, I've made them all loud.
So that's always the common thing running through. Is you want to crank up the noise.
Yeah, crank the noise up a little bit. The speed's always there. So you ain't got to worry about tuning them, making them faster, and nothing like that, because these bikes go 1,000,000 miles per hour. I don't ever want to see what my bike does, topped out, but I want to hear it. That's pretty much it. It's like owning a muscle car and not being able to hear it. You get this big cammed out whatever, and you don't hear it at all. It's real quiet and stuff. I want to hear the bike. But yeah, that's what's always been the thing for me.
So if money wasn't a concern at all, what bike or bikes would you add to your garage?
We'd go the Aprilia.
Which one? The fairing or no fairing?
No fairing.
So the Tuono?
The Tuono, yeah. And then I would go, it's close between that bike and the Super Duke for me. Those are my two favorite naked bikes. Gosh, man, I'd go a V4.
The Ducati.
The Ducati, yeah, I would go that. And I would get another Road Glide, honestly. I'd keep my scooter, though. The scooter's got to stay. The same scooter. I don't want a new scooter. I don't want a fancy scooter. I want this old...
You like that old busted thing?
I want this old bucket, yeah. That thing is so fun to ride. Like scooting to me, it makes scooting for me. Like if I was to have a newer one like yours, it wouldn't be the same feeling as having this old bucket that I paid, $500 for. That I could ride across the country and I think I know it's going to make it. Like it's going to, and it's going to be still comfortable when it gets there. Like,
there's just something special about having like a 30-year-old scooter.
Oh my God, dude.
There's no worry or concern in the world. Because if anything catastrophic was going to happen, it would have happened by now. It's 30 years old. It's like an old house. When you buy an old house, it's like there isn't any surprises here. Anything that was going to happen catastrophic would have happened at this point.
It's done. Yeah, it's done.
She's settled in.
You remember that one day me and you went out scooting? I think Kinsey was with us too. And it was raining and it did all kinds of nasty stuff that day. We rode way out in Indiana. And we both broke down at the same exact time.
Yeah, and we both had the exact same issue.
To the T. Like we borrowed the same tool from some guy at a gas station to fix the exact same problem. It was awesome. It was so good. But yeah, the Scoot's got to stay. But the other bikes, like if I was to upgrade from the BMW, it would have to be the Super Duke, I feel like, because I've talked about it so damn much. And I've ridden one, so I know how well it fits me. And I'm like, that's my top tier bike.
So, sounds like you have a few bikes there that you wouldn't mind. Like you owned a Road Glide before and you wouldn't mind owning one again.
Yeah.
Is on, no budget concern or anything like that.
Yeah. And it couldn't be my only bike.
It couldn't be?
No, the Road Glide couldn't be my only bike. It's cool for one thing and one thing only. That's just cruising. Yep. That's cruising. Pretty much what I do on the scooter. It just does it in a cooler looking way, I guess. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and I've found big touring bikes like that. They have their purpose, And if you try to use them outside of their purpose, they're just big, cumbersome, like lumbering machines that are hard and unwieldy to handle.
Yeah.
So they're not fit for everything.
And like, no offense to the guys that have the nice, like the guys we see down there on the Dragon, like those guys have bikes that can carve corners just as well as any bike, but they also have how much money into their suspension and everything else.
Yeah, and I went to a track, and one of the coaches there was coaching like a novice thing, and he was coaching from a Road Glide ST. That's the new fancy one with all the fancy suspension and stuff. And yeah, it can get down for a bagger, but like compared to any capable sport bike, like you're going to leave him if you're any kind of qualified rider.
Yeah.
But to coach novice on, absolutely. I was like, dude, that's awesome. Like that's a killer bike to coach novice from, because it's like you can kind of point out to the class, look, if this bike can do it, then your bike can definitely do it.
Yeah.
Because like if I can go this fast on a Harley, you can for sure do that on your Suzuki or Kawasaki. Like it's absolute.
Yeah. But yeah. Yeah, those are my bikes pretty much. That's it.
So, we talked about what bikes you wouldn't mind having, but do you have anything like goals riding wise that you'd like to achieve next?
As far as skill,
Just anything.
or anything,
Just anything.
I think I'm to my limit, and I like being at my limit. I know where it is. I've hit it. I'm cool with being the rider I am today. I don't want to go any faster. I don't want to push the edge a little further, nothing like that. But I would like to clean up things that I do that are clunky,
And besides just like the skill of it, because I think like skill can go in all different directions. You could say I'm a skilled sport rider, but I'm not necessarily a skilled dirt rider, and maybe I'd like to grow more dirt. And thinking along like that, is there any other discipline that you'd like to learn or like to grow in, or is there any would you like to do something with a motorcycle that you've never done before? Whether it's like a long trip or just anything and those kind of things. Do you have anything in mind that?
I would like to travel on a bike at least once for a summer, like when Colton gets older or something like that, and I can afford to take off for a month or whatever. I would love to do that. I get so jealous when I see Dustin, how he goes to different countries and gets bikes, and I'm like, man, that would be so cool to do. Go ride somewhere else, go to down to Mexico or something, ride around somewhere,
And Dustin, I don't know why in the world he likes to go to other countries to do it. I'm like, we live in a giant country, dude. Just
yeah.
Well, you would think that you would be like, oh well, let me explore my current country and then.
No, he's like, let's go to Baghdad and rent bikes, guys. Let's
Yeah,
do that.
going to
Sounds
wild
good.
places, and I'm like, you've not been 3 states over. Maybe start there.
Yep.
so living off of a bike is, and I don't mean permanently. I just mean while you're on the trip.
Yeah.
It's so different and unique. One of my favorite aspects of it is, I've done a lot of motorcycling, got a lot of experience as far as my own rider skill, learning and progressing like that on the racetrack, actually racing, doing a lot of off-road and racing off-road and doing all that stuff. But one thing that for me that kind of opened up a new perspective was really the first time I took a big trip. So I had taken trips from Cincinnati to Georgia, or Cincinnati to South Carolina. South Carolina was to go to a job site. Going to Georgia was to go into the mother-in-law's house. But those are places I'd been to a bunch of times. So honestly, they weren't super adventurous. I kind of I already basically shut my eyes and get there. But I'd never done it on a bike, so it was more just dialing in how to go a long distance on a bike. But the first time I pointed my bike in a direction I'd never been before, and I rode from Cincinnati to the southern tip of Texas to go visit Jessica while she was working down there. And I don't know, the second you leave the familiar on a bike, it's not like when you're in a car. Because I've pointed my car in a direction and gone to a new place I've never been before, and that's not really that big of a deal. It doesn't seem like that scary or adventurous. But man, like I got going down out of Cincinnati. I headed down 75 to where 71 splits off and goes towards Louisville. And once I got through Louisville, because I've been to Louisville a bunch of times, once I got through Louisville and I got on the other side of it and I was pointed towards Nashville and Memphis, that's when it kind of hit me. And it's like this, it's almost frightening. It's exciting. It's not, it's good. It's like you're frightened, but it's good. It's weird. But I describe it as like this massive amounts of vulnerability hit me, because I realized like how dependent I was on this machine functioning. Because if it didn't function, I was screwed. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know, like just something hit you like that. And then as I'm going, the challenge of the task, it's a whole different thing. When you drive somewhere, like if you drive your car Cincinnati to Florida, like to my dad's house in Tampa is 1,000 miles from here, and I can drive it one day. It's not a big deal. Like, I mean, it sucks to drive, 12, 14 hours in one day. But if you were to do it on a bike, you have to add like 2 to 3 hours on top of what it would take to drive in a car, because you have to stop more often for gas. And the fatigue you feel from the wind shear, from everything, it just amplifies greatly compared to a car.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's pretty wild. If you have the opportunity to take a big trip, I do highly recommend it. And it is very interesting, even though like the ride itself can be just like, trudging down the highway.
Yeah. Boring.
It's you think it would be boring, but it's not. It's exciting because of, just new experience sort of thing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Everything's different about it when you're on a bike, and you instantly get this sense of vulnerability, and it's like new. It's this newness, excitement, but you're unsure of what's ahead of you because you don't know, you've never been there, and it adds an extra layer, because just like driving there, it's like if you have a problem when you're driving, you can just stop, and you have at least the security of the interior of your vehicle to be like, well, at least I have some space that will be familiar wherever I go. On the bike, you really don't. Like, everything you touch and step on will be new apart from the bike, and you don't have the security of heat or air conditioning or, a roof,
Or ultimately, if you broke down, like in a car, you still have a place to sleep.
Yeah.
On a bike, you're like,
I was about to say.
I'm screwed.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the weather changes, and all of a sudden you're in a downpour for 3 hours or whatever.
And I've experienced that going on a trip. I've traveled to South Carolina on my bike, and it was like November or December or something, and I had an ice storm that I had to ride through. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that was going to be there or that was going to happen. And so you learn how to deal with the situation at hand very quickly.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just got to grit your teeth and just push through. And sometimes it can be miserable in the instant, but it makes it worth it when you get through it. So,
you haven't done any long distance, like super long distance riding, it sounds like. Mm-mm. But have you taken any trips on motorcycles, like loaded up the motorcycle and gone somewhere and done something out of taking those sort of trips? Do you have any one that stands out to you? Was any one of those your favorite?
I say I did a South Bend, Indiana one time. Just a random trip. I wanted to go up there and I wanted to camp off of the Harley. So I packed me a sleeping bag in there because I knew it was going to be nice out. It was in the middle of summer, and I looked at the weather before I went. So I just packed a sleeping bag, and I stopped somewhere and grabbed wood when I got closer to the place with some takeout. And I ended up just pulling off in a state park that allowed camping up there, and I just threw some firewood in there and lit a fire and hung out.
Just on your own?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
yeah,
cool.
Just right up there. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Took all back roads up there.
The tent or no tent?
No tent.
Just out in the stars?
Yeah. Just brought me a tent, or brought me a sleeping bag, and that was it.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, just a little cheap $20 Walmart sleeping bag there. It was cool though. That was a neat trip. And then I've ridden to Tennessee to Trav's uncle's house before. That was pretty nice. I didn't have to load the bike up to go down there because somebody was driving a car, so I just threw my stuff. It was still nice though to drive the bike down there.
Yeah.
And then ride around and explore that little area they live in. It was neat.
Whenever I've taken a trip on a bike, it's typically with the bike loaded down. But for Christmas, we always go down to the mother-in-law's in Georgia. And this year, Jessica was kind enough to let me ride down. And since she was taking the car with the dogs, I didn't have to load my bike down full of stuff. I only had to take, personal things, and it was nice not having like a fully loaded bike and not having to worry about all my stuff and where it's going to go and how I'm going to fit it and everything. It was pretty cool. So I enjoyed going a long distance without having to carry a whole bunch of crap.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like some days when we would take the razors out. Like we'd leave our camp. We know we're going to be gone all day long. So like they would make sandwiches, we'd all pack lunches and stuff like that. We have coolers packed. It was so cool. And I feel like that just adds to the adventure. Is like you're packing what you need because you don't know when you're going to be back.
Yep.
Like we'd get stuck sometimes. He was out in the middle of the woods when he first got his razor, and we were way, way out there. It's like 2:00 in the morning, and something happens to like your drive shaft or something. And we're out there beating on this thing until like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, not knowing if we can get his razor back, And all we have is what we have on the rigs, and that's it. It's so cool. That feeling is nice. Like just have whatever you have packed in this little, and that's it. You just go.
I always like the challenge of it. I like being challenged. And I like the adventure aspect of it.
Yeah.
So like setting off on a trip where Travis and I got into we go down to the mountains and we'll ride to the mountains and ride around the mountains, but we don't, other than like planning how much time we're going to take, because obviously you got to take time off of work and everything, so you only have so many vacation days. But if we take like a long weekend and say do like a 4-day weekend ride, we know we're going to ride to the Smoky Mountains, which is 4 or 5 hours away from here. So we know that's the general area we'll be in. Other than that, like I'll write up some routes just so we know we have these ride routes set up to where like, hey, these are going to be some good roads. That way we don't just get stuck on crap roads. Or if I notice something on the map that looks really cool, I'll notate it, but we don't have to stick to those plans. And I think one of my favorite parts about those trips is like sleeping in a new place every night, because it just allows you to see so much more. 4 days of riding and each night in a new place. So every time you start off, you're not going back to a base camp. You get to just adventure further and further. And then, once you're halfway through the trip, you start making your way back. So I really enjoy like that style. When was the last time we'd done one of those trips?
Where we stayed, where we just hopped around and didn't stay. There was the one we did in December, right?
And we did the your bachelor party.
We did that for that too. Yeah, we went and rode and did that. I feel like that's the only two where we've really like jumped around. We didn't have somewhere to go back to.
We're gonna do that style of trip on the scooters, ain't we?
Yeah. That's the plan.
That's what I figured.
Jessica's trying to put together a diving / motorcycle trip to the Keys, and I don't know how far along the plans are for that and like what's all involved in that, but
I'll do the riding part, but not the
diving part.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Yeah.
No, I figured, and
Nah.
and I'm not super keen on like hardcore diving either. Like I'm happy to do a couple of dives with her, but I don't want to spend the entire time diving.
I can go swim in a pool, but I ain't getting in the ocean. That's where I draw the line. I'll go down to the beach to look at the water, but I'm not walking in there. Yeah.
I got this question here. Like, I got it, and I was gonna save it for the end, but I think it'll be better to move it in the rotation. If you could start your motorcycling journey over, what would you do differently?
Man, if I could start it over, like completely over.
Yep.
What do I wish would be different about how it started?
Yeah,
or
what would you change about it? Like,
I wish I was friends with him from the get-go.
Like,
so that way I had somebody to look up to that would tell me the right way to ride. So I didn't waste a bunch of time being a hooligan. That's pretty much it. I don't know. If I had to change it, I would try to do it the right way, get my license right away, try to be legit, about everything, because I cut a bunch of corners to get a bike.
Well, speaking of cutting corners and not having your license, did you ever get in trouble?
No, never.
You just happened to luck out?
Yeah. A lot of dropping gears and taking off. That's pretty much all it was. I mean, that was the whole crowd. I mean, it'd be 50 bikes, coming down there.
No face, no case.
They're not stopping all of us. Come on now. Why do you think your buddy wears his helmet everywhere? Yeah. No, yeah, I wish I did it right. I wish I would have waited and got my license and, went and got the proper bike that I wanted instead of just buying whatever I had the cash for at the time. Because I had a lot of problems with my first bike, but it was all cool. I think it just added to,
the experience of
the
it.
experience, and what I know now for sure. Definitely. If I didn't have a shitty bike that I had to take apart 100 times, then I wouldn't know how to take fairings off of a bike. If I just started out with a nice bike, I would have never had to do any of that stuff. So
sometimes I forget, I spent time being a professional mechanic for so long. I forget that other people didn't spend their careers being a professional mechanic. So I forget that I have that advantage going into. So I've never considered that as like a concern. Like,
I didn't even grow up in a house that knew how to change oil on a car.
Yeah.
Or, put gas in a car.
Well, funny enough, I didn't either. None of my family is mechanical.
Yeah.
I just happened to be, and I couldn't afford to take my car to pay a mechanic whenever I wanted to do something. And I was one of those kids that put a fart can on a Honda. Yeah. So I was wanting to do stuff to my little Honda car. And I couldn't pay people to do it. So I would just, and this is kind of before the internet. YouTube didn't exist because I'm that old, Mm-hmm. And I would just have to learn. And I would go out there. My brakes went metal to metal one time. So I knew I needed new brake pads, and new brake rotor. And I didn't know how to change them. I'd never done it before. But I just went out there and tinkered with it and learned how. And same thing with changing my oil. I knew that I had to change the oil and the filter and then put new oil in it. So I learned how to do that. And that all transferred over to bikes too. But I'd never even considered it was never a concern for me getting a crappy bike because I was like, I knew I could fix it.
Yeah, you knew you work on it. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. It's fun.
I think it adds character having a, just like people with your first car. Your first car is always just some ragged out beater.
Yeah. It should be anyways.
Yeah.
First, second, third, 10th, whatever. I'm on my 15th.
Some people never grow out of that, but I think it's important to start, at the bottom and to work your way up. That way you can appreciate when you do have something nice that you don't have to work on all the time. You can look at it and be have a greater sense of appreciation for it. I think a lot of people these days lose out on that because I see a lot of people with cars that I'm like, man, you don't deserve that. They're 18 years old and they're driving around in a brand new Jeep Compass or something or, or whatever. And they don't know how to do anything on it. They get a flat tire and they're calling AAA. Yeah. And they don't know anything about changing the oil or doing all this stuff. It's all handled for them and everything. And it's they lose out on understanding that there's more to it.
And
than
there's a
just
lack
pushing
of
a button.
appreciation too, because you don't truly appreciate what it takes to own those things.
I feel like every guy should go through this. You should be out and another guy's driveway spray painting your rims when he shows up. That's what you should be doing. You should just be in that guy. You're like, ooh, I got this new metallic color. I'm going to spray it on right now. This is a great time to do it.
In the grass.
In somebody else's freaking house.
So you didn't get to participate in the discussion we had last week, the last episode, where we were talking about bikes that exist but shouldn't. So here's your opportunity. What bike exists but shouldn't, in your opinion?
I think the number one bike is that the Yamaha, the 3-wheel Yamaha that I put in the group chat.
The Niken?
Is it Niken?
Is that the one?
Yeah, it has the 2 wheels in the front that move. Yep. That bike should not exist at all.
You know what, though?
I am so sick of seeing the memes from that bike.
I want to ride it.
Do you?
I genuinely want to ride it.
Yeah.
Like, I think it would be interesting and cool to ride, and I think it makes sense in one circumstance as a sport tour. And for a little bit, they had a model, or they had a trim level of that bike called the GT.
GT, yeah.
And it came with bags, and it came with a tall windshield and stuff. As a sport tour, I think it made all kinds of sense.
Yeah.
Although it was a little pricey for the performance you get, and you can get better performance elsewhere.
Yeah.
But,
there were just so many other bikes, not in that category, but, in that price range that were just way freaking better.
I think that bike was missing one thing that made it make sense. Just as a bike, period. What it really needed was the system to hold itself upright.
Yeah, it needed a lockout.
Yeah.
Just
if
like
if they had developed the lockout where you didn't have to have the kickstand down and it would hold itself up, then that bike would have made a whole lot more sense for a whole lot more people.
Yeah.
Because then it would have been, if you have, you're missing a leg, or you have an issue where you can't hold a big heavy bike up, or you just need extra help, or you want reassurance to know that that's there if you need it, then that would have made that whole thing make sense.
It would have probably taken a lot of Harley's customers from the 3-wheeler.
I think
The Can-Ams for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
think of how many
definitely,
people that wouldn't have bought a Can-Am Riker
Yeah.
or something and might have bought one of those if they didn't have to worry about the whole holding it up thing.
I think so. There's a scooter that's not super big. In fact, I've never seen one here in the United States, other than on a showroom floor once. But when I was in France, man, I was blown away at how many of these scooters I saw. It was like every street corner there was one of these. It's called a Piaggio MP3, and it has a real similar front suspension to the Yamaha Niken, except it came out years before the Yamaha Niken. So it's a 3-wheeled vehicle, that 2 wheels in the front, 1 wheel in the back, and when you can lean the bike, but somehow the suspension mechanically doesn't do it electronically. It mechanically locks out below a certain mile an hour. Like once you get below like 15 mile an hour, it locks out and it won't lean anymore. Now it only steers.
Yeah.
So when you're moving slow speed, it'll just be upright and you never have to put your feet down. But then as soon as you get going, now it transitions back to handling just like a motorcycle. So it leans through corners and everything. When I first saw the Niken, that's what I thought of. I thought, they're going to make like a motorcycle that has a similar suspension design. But then when I found out that the Niken doesn't lock out, I was kind of like, it's kind of a miss, like that bike. Why wouldn't you just buy a normal motorcycle at that point? You can spend less and have more performance. So I didn't understand the Niken's role in that from that standpoint. But I understand that the Niken's purpose might be to develop that technology and move it forward so they can use it elsewhere. But I don't understand why they felt the need to produce a product for the public. They could have developed that in private.
And all they had to do was add a feature that made the bike make sense in the market.
And I think that's...
The bike doesn't do anything that a normal motorcycle does different. It doesn't have anything that stands out other than having another front wheel. But it's like a regular motorcycle didn't need another front wheel. You didn't solve a problem.
Yep.
You created problems by having more stuff.
Like one of the things I hate the most about it is it does lock out on full lean. Like you can only lean it so many degrees of lean angle. I forget what it is, like 45 degrees or something like that.
I think it's just so it doesn't pick up the outside tire from whichever way you're leaning.
Yeah, because
right?
it mechanically reaches a limitation. Yeah. So if you commit to a corner faster than you otherwise should have, which I'm not trying to say that, we're all over ambitious here, but like it happens sometimes. Sometimes you overcook one. Yeah. You didn't mean to go in that hot, or you didn't know that the corner tightens up because it's decreasing radius. Yeah. On a normal motorcycle, you can lean in more and kind of pray for it. Maybe low side, maybe come out all right. And I don't want to leave it like that because there are actual riding techniques that you should be doing, but largely to oversimplify it, you can just lean more. Where on this thing you can't just lean more, so it takes away one of the tools you have in your skills bag to be able to negotiate that situation. On a normal motorcycle, you can scrub some speed and lean more. On this thing, you can only scrub speed. That's your only option.
Scrub speed and spray and pray. That's literally it.
Otherwise, you're blowing wide, man. Yeah.
Well, and it has more weight higher up too with that whole cantilever system. So I'm sure the tip end is a little bit more sluggish. So if you're leaned over and you need to grab every last little bit that thing has, I'm sure it is harder to do, which is going to negatively impact.
Have you guys seen one of these in person?
Yeah, I've seen one in person.
Man, they are like, they're as tall as your adventure bike.
They're massive.
They're huge.
The front end is massive.
It's like this wide. Like, no joke. Huge. It's like this wide in the front. Yeah. It's not small.
It looks cumbersome.
And the front wheels, it has 4 shocks on it. Four forks. Fork tubes that come down, and then a wheel on each side. And the wheels are inset from the fork tubes to make it a little more narrow. It's just... And it's a 15-inch wheel in the front, which means tire size is terrible. Yeah. And I don't know.
See, look, there's just so many
not
things.
Many advantages to that.
No,
bike.
There's not. And think of the extra maintenance that you got to do on that thing, the extra tire you got to buy for that thing, let alone having to find the tires for that thing. Like, it's just...
Yeah, and Fortnite did a video on it, like, trying to figure out, like, where it made sense. And he struggled to find a place for that bike.
And I think that's true. And like I said, when it came out as a sport touring version with the GT version, I was like, that makes more sense. But then when you really look close at the sport tour version, it didn't have cruise control. It was like it was missing out on things that like a sport tour should have. I'm like, come on, Yamaha, like figure it out.
Well, they just did side saddles and they just did small ones. They didn't have like huge ones or anything. They were like just some nice, clean, sport tour looking little bags on the side. And that was it. That's basically all they did was change that and then colors or something. That's the only changes they did to make that bike. They didn't even put sport tour tires on it.
I've seen one. I've seen them in person either at like bike shows or at a dealership, but I've never ever seen one out in the wild. I've never seen one in action, like being ridden.
I think I've only seen the one at Midwest. I think it is the one out there by Lowe's, off the highway there.
That's Middletown.
Middletown,
Octane?
yeah, Octane. That's what it's called. Yeah. Yeah, I've only seen one there. It was a used one.
So we talked about a bike that exists but shouldn't, since you had to miss out on that last episode. But we've never talked about this. What's a bike that doesn't exist that should? And you don't have to be like a brand or anything like that, but like, is there like a configuration of motorcycle that you're like, man, I wish that existed?
Yeah, if a Road Glide and a Hayabusa had a baby, I think that would be pretty cool. A big...
That's just a Diavel, isn't it?
A Busa Glide?
No, because it doesn't have bags. A Diavel's like, that's a Diavel. Like if a Busa had bags on it and like everything and had the full comfort, but had all the speed.
Feet forward?
No, not feet forward. I think it would look stupid. But you still gotta have like a crotch rocket look to it. But yeah, I think it should have bags on it.
14-inch rise.
Yeah.
Get your hands up there.
Put the big 21-inch wheel in the front.
Pick the flies out your
I
armpits.
think that would be pretty cool, though. I think it'd be cool if they came out with a touring, or not a touring, yeah, I guess a touring bike for the Hayabusa. The Hayabusa's missing out on that. Like, you have to strap all of that on there.
The Jix's 1000 GT Plus, whatever. That's kind of what that is, isn't it? What Cheeseman has?
Yeah, I mean, from like a...
It's a little bit smaller than the
Yeah,
Hayabusa.
and I get what John's saying, and Kawasaki, they had the ZX14, which is basically a Kawasaki Hayabusa.
Yeah.
But they, out of that platform, they built the Concourse 14, which is based on the ZX14 engine, but they make it shaft drive instead of chain drive, and then they give it like the Sport Tour complete makeover, and they it's a pretty large motorcycle, but it's not what you're talking about. I think what you're talking about, in all honesty, I think there is going to be a market for this. I think we're going to see this coming in the future, and it's all riding on the back of the racing that's happening right now. The King of the Baggers.
Yeah.
I think they're going to come out road-going versions of those bikes.
I think they should.
If you ever get to see them in action, I highly recommend it, especially in person. They're the loudest things I've ever heard.
They go up to Midwest, don't they?
You mean Middo?
Or Middo?
Yeah. They race out of Middo. So
I've seen videos of them. They look ridiculous.
Here's the crazy part. Kyle Wyman and one other dude from King of the Baggers was out at MotoGP in Europe with their King of the Baggers bikes.
No way.
Testing, which means MotoGP is about to sign these boys. And
they're going to have a race class for them in MotoGP?
Because it's such a spectacle. And the crazy thing about it is, at Mid-Ohio, when Moto America was there doing the Moto America races, that's when the King of the Baggers come, is because it's part of the Moto America race program. These guys were lapping Mid-Ohio 3 seconds off of the Superbikes. The Superbikes is the highest level of racing you get in the United States. Like, Moto America Superbike is the top. It's the very tippy top. After Moto America Superbikes, typically, like, if you win that class, if you podium and take home the championship, it's not necessarily a guarantee or anything, but you're in the rankings, in the runnings. You could possibly take your career to the world stage in Europe, to either World Superbike or step into MotoGP. You won't get on a GP machine, but you can get into Moto 2, which is the level right below GP. And then from Moto 2, you can work your way into GP, or from World Superbike, you can work your way into GP. And so that's trying to set the context for how fast a superbike is. A superbike is insane.
Yeah, and they're designed to be that way.
And
there's giant manufacturers with billions of dollars building these bikes.
Yeah, and
those guys,
massive amounts of. I'm going to tell you, the King of the Baggers has some serious development.
Yeah,
too.
But they aren't consumer products. Like, you can't just go buy that bike. You can go buy a Superleggera or whatever. But
didn't was it Indian?
Indian sells a direct.
It's like last year's version or something.
It's a current. It's a current version of the Indian Challenger King of the Baggers bike. They made some odd number of them, like 27 of them, and they were $98,000. I know it sounds expensive, but when you consider the base bike is $30,000, and then to build the thing, it actually is cheaper than building one yourself. It's literally the bike that won this year. This year's King of the Baggers was won by an Indian. You as a consumer could go out and buy this thing, but I'm pretty sure there's some qualifying factors. One, it's not a street bike. It's just a track bike. It's just a race bike. And two, I think you had to have a Moto America license to be able to purchase one. So basically, they were for privateers that were racing Moto America, which I appreciate that about Indian.
That's just a step away from a production version.
It's not far off of a production version, and I know a production version is going to be watered down, right? Like, it's not going to be the King of the Bagger bike.
Well, no, they got to cut corners somewhere to make it affordable so people would actually purchase it.
Exactly. It's got to be in the realm of reasonable.
They're going to cut out stuff that nobody's going to use.
It's got to pass emissions.
Yeah.
It's got to be reliable. The bags on a King of the Bagger bike do not function, and they're made of super thin carbon fiber.
I bet, yeah.
And they're just there to be the King of the Bagger's bike.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has
But
to look the part.
As a road going version, I would imagine they would make functional bags.
I don't know. Why not? Well, just leave them big carbon fiber things. Make them pay more for the bag.
Have you
Yeah, charge extra.
have you seen one of those bikes up close in person?
Mm-mm.
It's the tallest thing I've ever seen.
I've never seen one. Where'd you see one at?
I've been at Jennings on the track with them.
Oh, God.
I've been to many shows with them as well. Seen them at all kinds of dealer shows where they'll have them up for display and stuff. It's the highest seat height I've ever seen in my life.
Holy
Like
crap.
most of the riders have to get on a stool to climb on them. That's how tall they are. You can't touch the ground when you're on them.
Like jockeys.
It's crazy. Like Zach Court's got to ride one. Yeah, like he couldn't like touch the ground on it.
Oh, I bet.
And
Wow.
and he's 6'2", you know, and they're the wildest thing you've ever seen. Like they don't make any sense, and the weight is actually respectable. So they're down. Original weight on a Challenger's like 850 pounds, and these things in race weight they're about 650 pounds, which is like starting to get reasonable. You know, like it's not that bad.
Yeah.
They punch them out to like 130 plus cubic inches, which is like 2,100 cc's. They make about 155, 160 horsepower, but they also make like 150 some foot-pounds of torque. Like it's a gob shit ton of torque.
Wow.
But to be 3 seconds off the Superbike pace, and they were pretty much tying the pace of the 600 race class. They were pretty much tying that pace.
Man.
It's incredible to think that they can go
wild.
that fast on a 650 pound bagger.
Yeah. Big giant bikes too.
Well,
Like-
and that bike is twice the weight of like a super bike, you know, and about the same amount of horsepower, maybe a little bit less actually. Probably some of them are, you know, I know the Ducatis are probably like 200 horsepower or better. More torque, yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah, for
but
sure.
then to only be 3 seconds slow is pretty impressive.
It's really damn impressive. When I going to Jennings, you've been to Jennings.
Mm-hmm.
Travis, you've been to Jennings. Talk about lap times at Jennings, just to put it into more context. Travis, you were running low 130s last time we were there.
129, I think, was my best.
So you just broke into the high 120s, which is that's when you sign up for advanced, is when you can consistently run 129s. I think I could put down a mid 120 there, if I'm being honest. Like I think I really could put down a mid 120. I don't know if I could go fast enough to get into the low 120s, but I'm thinking I could be a pretty solid, consistent mid 120, at least for 4 or 5 laps before I tire out.
Yeah, literally tire out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the
Burn
thing.
all
Like
the
once
tire
you
off of it.
Yeah, once you get on a hot lap there, I mean you're only gonna run that for maybe 2-3 laps, and then you're thinking about hitting that meatball at the end a little bit wide, and you're like, all right, I'm getting off the
Start
track.
blowing apexes.
Yeah, you're like, I'm getting hot.
And then when you were there, I bet your first laps there were starting out in the 150s.
Yeah.
And then you kind of came and you kind of dialed it in to where you were probably up into the high 130s, mid 130s by the time you were done with it.
According to the BMW, it said 135s.
Yep.
So that's
you're getting into the mid 130s, which is a solid intermediate rider.
yeah. But that was going off that stupid button that I had to hit
I know
every
it-
time.
It's not going to be perfect,
Yeah.
but like just
Yeah, roughly.
Close enough.
130s.
roughly mid 130s. That guy we met, Michael,
Yeah,
he was running 119s.
yeah.
Is what he was running. He's
Quick
He's
guy.
quick, dude.
Yeah,
he's quick,
real
dude.
quick.
Kayla Yakov, she was there, and she runs 117s.
Yeah.
The lap record is a 114.
Yeah.
Imagine the king of the baggers rolling around there. I bet they do 119s.
Man, on them big giant bikes.
And here I am running like 125s.
Yeah.
And that's like hustling. That's me moving. That's solid advanced
That's on a
groove.
1300 cc bike that weighs half of what those things weigh.
That's a solid advanced pace. Like that's getting it done.
It is.
And these dudes are blowing my doors off like crazy.
Yeah.
It's insane to think about.
I remember when Kayla passed me, and I'm like, "This is wild!" Like
Yeah.
I felt like I was moving. She passed me by like I was
Like
sitting
you're
still,
sitting still.
in the middle of a corner, just hit it perfectly and passed right inside of me. I'm like, "Whoa,
About to suck the paint off your bike.
wild!" I was happy they only let her out there for that one day because there was hardly anybody at the track, so she was just running wild whenever she wanted to. But yeah, that was cool.
And,
Cool to see it.
Michael, he was a nice guy. I had just passed you. I had just passed you, and it was right as we were coming into 345, and as I'm like midway between 5 and 6, Michael steps in underneath me, and he sticks his elbow out and like just knocks his elbow on the ground, and I was like, man, like whenever I see fast guys like that, I'm always like, damn, that's cool. Like I love watching fast guys do their thing. But yeah, like a bike like what you're talking about sounds like if a Hayabusa and a Road Glide were to have a baby, it honestly sounds a lot like a King of the Bagger bike. And with a King of the Bagger bike, you would still retain the Road Glide looks, because I think if a Road Glide and a Hayabusa had a baby, you wouldn't want it to look like some transformer thing.
No, yeah.
You know, like the GSXS 1000 GT Plus, the longest name in the world. What it looks like is some sort of Japanese transformer thing. Boo. Thanks, Nick.
There you go, Nick.
Instead, you'd want it to look like a Road Glide, like,
Yeah.
because that sort of look is. I've grown more and more to appreciate that side of things, like why those guys want the bike to look that way and stuff,
Yeah.
And I can appreciate it from some points. I've never owned one,
Yeah.
so, and I probably will never own one, but
I loved it, man. I rode that thing everywhere. Everywhere. It was loud. It was comfortable. My seat was huge, like way too big for my skinny ass. But it was just so much fun to ride that thing. And then we upgraded the infotainment system on it. So I had like my Bluetooth or CarPlay or whatever in there. That was cool. Man, that bike was just so cool. And I've ridden the Hayabusas before. So I'm like, man, if these two could just join up and make one solid bike, like it would be so cool. Because the Busa is like, I feel like it's just cumbersome for how I ride. Like when we go down the Willow, it's a big bike. It's huge.
those
And
are 600 pounds.
They're heavy as hell. But the way I ride on it and how comfortable I am physically on the bike is bar none compared to the S1000R or anything like that. Like I'm way more comfortable on that bike physically, like with my arms, my legs down, everything. Like I feel super comfortable on that bike, and it has all the giddy up in the world to get you anywhere. But yeah, if those two could join together, because the big Harley was just terrible coming out of the corners, and it wanted to scrape everything everywhere. But yeah, if it had just a little bit more suspension and a lot more horsepower, it'd be way more fun.
So I always feel like I appreciate the bike for the look of it, but I what I ultimately don't like is the performance. The performance is just not there.
It isn't.
When they come out with this new version of the Road Glide ST, it's Harley being Harley, and them being like, oh, we're coming out with a performance version of this bike. And all they did was took a normal bike and put like fancy shocks on it. They didn't actually address the problem of like, there's still crap ground clearance.
Yep.
Maybe it's raised up 1 inch or something, but it's still like, it's not enough. The bike still is way overweight, way underpowered, crappy brakes. And they put some fancy suspension on it, but I'm sure they still tune the suspension more for comfort than for sporting ability. So the geometry's too laxed. Like everything about the bike is just, it's set up to still be a Harley Road Glide. I would agree with you. I want it even sportier than that.
Yeah, I want a super sport base. Come out with an SS version.
Yeah,
all right,
like just
for guys like us.
And I get that it's going to be heavier than a sport bike. Like I'm not asking you to suddenly make an 850-pound bike weigh 400 pounds. Like that's not possible.
No.
But if you can get the weight down from 850 down to 750, I think that would be reasonable. And then get the, I would love to see it on a set of wheels that looked good, but also had performance, because I don't want these huge 26-inch wheels and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like that's
The big cast iron forged
Yeah.
wheels or whatever they are. They weigh a ton too.
Yep, and that's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
We're talking about like actual
Yeah,
performance.
we want real stuff.
Even if you had to do it on a 19-inch wheel,
Mm-hmm.
I think, because adventure bikes on 19-inch wheels, like they do great. So
Yeah, they do okay. You could get away with a 19 and be okay.
They would need to do so many things though. I mean, like their brakes and everything. I mean, they would put dual discs on the front.
oh yeah, absolutely.
And it would have to be some beefy stuff. Like,
a big gnarly brake.
don't just throw Brembo's name on your bullcrap KYMCs or whatever the heck they're running on those. Just like make them function. That was another bad thing about that bike. Gosh, you were coming in hot anywhere. You grab that brake, you were low siding the crap out of it. Because it just like, it would grab the front brake, but it wouldn't do anything. And then all of a sudden, it would get enough heat on the disc, I feel like. And it would just grab all of it and just want to dump the bike.
It just felt like blocks of wood.
Yeah, it did.
Harleys have been known for quite a while for having crap brakes until the most recent Harleys. They kind of started dialing that in better. But if you ride an older Harley, 90s, 2000s,
I feel like all the way up to past my year.
yeah,
was just
2010s,
junk. Yeah.
like their brakes were garbage.
Yeah.
Like they were really bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know anybody that has a newer Harley to go off of to base it. I've never even ridden a newer Harley. That's the newest one I've ever ridden. But
What motor was on yours?
the 131, I believe.
No, it wasn't
Or-
131. That's a catalog engine. You can't-
116. It had to be like a 116 or something like
No,
that.
it's either the 117 or the 114 or a 107, or unless it was an older model.
No, it had to be a one. I thought it was a 116.
Was yours a special?
It had to be a 17. Yeah, it was a special.
I think it's 117.
And it had the Screaming Eagle crap all over
yeah,
it.
they
and-
all have the
yeah,
Screaming Beagle.
yeah. Remember how much fun we had with that stupid tuner?
Yeah, you had the little dongle thing. Well, and then you had the throttle body
Yeah.
go out on it.
So I put a battery in this because I was about to sell it.
Well, it's a Harley, so they need a battery every year.
It literally needed one every year. But I was going to go put a battery in it, and I was in my storage unit at the time because I only had this little single slot storage unit and had no lights or anything. And I go in there with the battery, pull the old one out real quick, slap that one in because the guy's coming to look at the bike in like 3 days. So I want to make sure it's all good before the guy comes. So I go to slap the battery in. Well, I must have touched the positive or the negative, had the battery backwards or something because it fried the ECU, right? Is that what it was?
It fried the output of the ECU that drove the throttle body.
Yeah. So it wouldn't detect like when you gave it throttle or anything. It would start up still. It started up.
It would
no
start and
problem.
run, so it was using the, or maybe it was the input. I don't know. The throttle wouldn't work, but the bike would idle.
Yeah.
So it would
And you can
operate- it
manually
would
open
operate
the
throttle
butterfly,
body
crack
to
it.
idle, but it wouldn't. The throttle itself wouldn't work.
Yeah. Who do we have look at that?
Brooklyn.
Yeah,
He
Brooklyn.
fixed it.
Yeah, Brooklyn fixed
Yeah.
it for me. Yeah. Because he
Yeah.
had the fancy tool to scan it and everything. So
Yeah, you had to buy an ECU,
Yeah.
and then he had to plug in to the existing ECU and suck out the tune because it had the fancy Screaming Eagle tune on it. It was like a special dongle you plugged in. It was VIN matched, and then it would program it or whatever. He had to pull that out of the old ECU and then burn that into the new ECU and then make sure that everything was working and matched up because you had bought the throttle body thinking that that was the issue.
Yeah.
And it didn't fix it. It did the exact same thing.
Yeah. It was a pain
It
in
was,
the butt.
yeah, it was and it took like 3-4 weeks to
Yeah.
get it figured out.
Yeah, definitely. Luckily, the guys at Harley, they had everything I needed. It was the one up here that I went to. But, yeah, they had everything I needed. They swore it was that part, too. When I told them the problem and everything, swore it was that dang part.
It's almost like it was a problem with their motorcycles and they knew about it.
And I don't, in that circumstance, I don't think that was the issue. But you also had parts guys selling you parts.
And till this day, I still kick myself in the butt because I still feel like I did something wrong when I put the battery in. But I don't know. I mean,
And you could have arced it out.
Yeah.
You know, it could have been something like that. And I've seen, from my experience in cars, I've had car salesmen hook up jump boxes backwards and fry some stuff. Like typically on a car, there's a main fuse that'll pop when you hook it up backwards. But some cars don't have that, and so I've seen some cars be as bad as a fried ECU. Like I've seen it happen before. So even though you weren't using a jump box, if you just arced it, or if you put the battery in backwards and hooked it up backwards, I could see it doing that. Like I could see it doing something like that.
Yeah.
Backfed voltage into somewhere, and it just it goes gnarly.
We were days from selling this thing, and we had it completely apart.
Oh,
I'm like, oh my God.
you just call the guy up like, don't even come, dude.
Yeah, I told him not to come. He ended up coming right after we fixed it.
Yep.
Yeah. Paid full price, didn't even happen.
You're like, I don't know what happened, dude, but I tried to put a battery in this thing, and apparently I messed it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That was the only Harley on the planet that probably sold and you like broke even or made money on.
I almost doubled my money on that bike. Almost. I bought it for like $8,000. I sold it for 14.
I don't even know how you got it so cheap.
This is pre-COVID.
Like
Pre everything.
that's not even pre-COVID price. Like bagger price should never be that cheap. I don't know how
It was
in the world
awesome.
you gypsied that thing.
I don't know. I don't even know who I bought that thing from. Facebook Marketplace. That was it. I just went there and jewed him down, you know. Pulled the old Westside magic on him. I think I traded him some stuff for maybe
A couple Xboxes.
a couple of PlayStation.
And that's just crazy how cheap that. Like today, I mean, we're post-COVID world, which is a whole new thing, and it looks like we're returning to pre-COVID world as far as sales figures go. But,
Well, you think that's cheap? Think about the Razor. How much those cost?
well, those right now, you can get one of those on a crazy cheap right now.
Even though the one that I got from them needed some love, how much did I get it for? What, $5,000, $6,000?
I think it was 6.
Yeah, $6,000.
Like you can get razors right now for nothing. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
But during COVID, you couldn't touch one
for
for
COVID,
less than
yeah.
$15,000 or whatever.
How much you end up selling yours for?
I didn't sell it. I traded it for the R1.
Oh, okay.
I traded. That's right. The guy gave me the R1, and I think $6,000 or $7,000 in cash
He gave you $6,000 or $7,000 cash on top of the R1.
on top of that bike. Yeah,
So you only paid like $6,000 for the thing.
yeah,
So you basically got an R1 for free.
yeah. That's how it worked out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have good luck selling things.
That's that Westside crap.
Oh,
there.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few razors that I was like really, really tempted to pick up. Like there was I think it was a 1000. I can remember if it was an S or if it was an XP, but I think he wanted $3,500 for it. It
Yep.
needed the top end rebuilt.
That's on Facebook right now.
Yeah.
It's a 900.
Is it a
XP.
900?
Yeah, I was looking at. I offered him $1,000 for it. I got it in my thing.
I mean,
I told him, I was like,
take it.
dude, the man hours, man, to put that thing back together. You know, you got to bullcrap him.
Yep.
You know, I know this. He doesn't know I know Travis.
I've had those apart before. It's there's nothing magical going on there. It's fine. It's a small car engine.
Yeah, it's not like the Can-Am. The Can-Am's a different story.
That thing was a pile.
That's a whole different.
Don't
story.
ever buy a Can-Am.
Don't ever buy a Can-Am.
Oh, you don't worry
Can-Ams,
about that.
Stay away from those.
The good old Canadian
man.
manufacturing.
Yeah. Yeah. And the weird upgrades people decide to do to them. Like the radiator.
Well, that's everybody. They think they got some trick.
Well,
They can make something magical happen. It just
that's just people paying attention to the internet forums and all that. You know, like where the internet forums. My favorite thing is the camshafts on the KTM's.
Yeah.
Like anytime you see anything, like if KTM the company puts out a video on like their new 390 Duke, there will be a ton of comments that are like, "Oh, does that thing got cheese cams in it? Does it got cams made out of chocolate?" And I'm like, one, you're so original. Let me guess, you also make jokes about losing your 10 millimeter socket. Like, good Lord. But two, I'm like, so it's like it's less than 1% failure rate. Less than one. It's a fraction of a percent is the failure rate. At my dealership, we've done one set ever.
Wow.
Everything else, we've never seen a bad cam. So people are acting like literally every KTM ever made, including the ones that were prior to this problem, that apparently now those have Because like I'll see a video on an older KTM, like an old 990 Adventure or something, and people are like cheese cams, and I'm like, it's a 20-year-old bike. Like that's not even the same machine. It's just crazy how the internet does that. So the internet makes you think, one, every bad thing that, you know, in manufacturing, if you have a 1, 2, 3% failure rate, now everybody thinks, well, every bike out there has that problem.
Yeah. So,
and they also think like literally every problem that exists is caused by that problem. Like say if you own the one of the bikes that has the bad camshafts, the 790 Duke, the 790 Adventure, things like that. Let's say you have one of those bikes. You have a 2020 790 Adventure R in your garage, and you get a flat tire. Cheese cams, that has to be the problem. And they come into my dealership with the bike saying like, I have this problem. I think it's the cams. No. Like, and I always tell them like, look, dude, I can tear this thing apart if you want and look at the camshafts. You need to $300 labor up front. If it has bad camshafts in it, no worries. We'll take care of it. You won't owe $300. But if I take this thing apart and it has good camshafts in it, then you owe me $300, and then you're going to pay me diagnostic to find out the problem that you're actually having.
yeah, fair enough.
And once I explain that to them, they're like, "Oh no, never mind." And then they take the bike. I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I thought."
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
But the internet always does that, and then they'll like come up with some fix for these problems, and the fix is always some like just ghetto rigged crap.
I do wonder though, those bikes that are listed as that issue as being a possibility. I could think because KTM's listed they have like a list.
Yeah, they have an affected range.
Yeah, I wonder if that's affected the value of those at all.
Oh, absolutely. It 100% has affected the value. It's also affected the demand of new bikes. It's crazy, like how people's minds work in all this. Like
Once they lose trust in it,
they've lost faith in
Yeah.
it. So KTM has the problem ahead of them is building faith back in the product. Even though that engine hasn't been made in 4 years, it's in people's minds now. They think they think, I'm not even kidding. They think every KTM has that problem. I wouldn't doubt them thinking a two-stroke has that problem. And the joke there for everybody is two-strokes don't have camshafts.
Yeah.
So it's like, I wouldn't doubt somebody being like, well, I've heard they've got camshafts problem. Like, dude, you're buying a two-stroke.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane. And KTM has made, arguably and essentially the best dirt bike to have ever been made for like the past at least 10 years. KTM has been the best dirt bike on the planet. And even though they're the best dirt bike on the planet, I still every day got to hear, oh, your camshafts. Oh, KTM's in financial problems. And I'm like, where did you get your information from? Because if it wasn't from KTM, I pretty much can guarantee you it's wrong. Because I keep seeing all these articles. One article claimed that KTM was like $3 billion in debt. KTM's not even worth $3 billion.
Wow. I'm pretty sure that popped up in my news feed.
So it's like, how can they be $3 billion in debt if they're not even worth $3 billion? It doesn't make any. No one would lend them that much money if they aren't worth that much money. Like it's kind of like loan to value when you go to get a car loan. No one will give John a loan for a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
You just don't make enough money to get that loan. It's called loan DTI and loan to value, and you're never going to get that loan because the bank looks at you and your income and goes, "Well, you're just not worth that amount of money. You'll never be able to repay it."
Side note: me and Travis know a guy that would definitely get a Lamborghini loan. This guy will get a loan for anything, apparently. Man, people pull some shady stuff to get loans, though.
But KTM is they have according to the best trusted information that I've been able to find, and it's weird how these things work, but there exists about a year's worth of inventory. And what that means is, like, at my store, we sell about 140 KTMs a year. So it's January 2025 right now. And if I were to receive all 2025 models, I could order about 140 and have a year's supply. So KTM right now, January 2025, has a year's supply of bikes sitting. Now, KTM doesn't have these bikes in their warehouse. These bikes exist at dealership lots all over the world. But KTM has a financial obligation to those units. But here's the thing that the article leaves out. KTM only has a financial obligation to those units on average for about 3 months.
And then the dealerships take.
And then it's the dealership's responsibility.
Yeah.
That falls onto the dealership's books. So the way it works is, like, the manufacturer ships the dealer a motorcycle. And this is typically done in a few different ways, whether the dealership is profiled to hold X amount of bikes on their showroom floor, or if they're ordered on demand. It depends on the manufacturer, but that's basically how it works. With KTM, the way it works is you build your order at the beginning of the model year before the model year comes out. So, like, we've already ordered all of our 2025 street stuff, and then later on this year, like in June or July, is when we'll be able to order the 2026 dirt stuff. The dirt stuff always comes out before the street stuff with KTM. We put our order in, and we put our order in for the entire year's worth of bikes. But KTM doesn't send us the whole year's worth of bikes up front. They send us a little at a time, month by month through the year, until it fills out our order. So when that bike is shipped to us, when KTM officially ships us that bike, it goes on, we get invoiced for it. So it goes on our floor plan. For the first, and it depends on the bike, it's model to model, but for the first 3 months of that floor plan, KTM covers the cost of it. So we get free flooring for the first 3 months. And in certain circumstances, that can be extended and blah, blah, blah.
And that's from the time it gets delivered to your store.
That's from the time we get it invoiced.
Oh, okay.
So before it even arrived to our store, our floor plan is taken effect.
Okay.
When it arrives in store, we get it out on the floor and have it up for sale. And our dealership's goal is to sell it before it's off of the free flooring, because then I get to keep whatever profit we make, or I get to maximize the profit we make. So, you have the MSRP of the bike. Say the MSRP is 10 grand. My dealer invoice, what the dealer pays for it, would be about 9 grand. People don't realize that there's not much margin in new bikes. It's about 10 to 12%. So, I got to pay 9 grand for the thing. The MSRP is 10 grand for the thing. And if I can sell it for MSRP, because you got to remember that the Johns of the world are going to try to negotiate me down, but I'm going to try to sell it for 10 grand so I can make $1,000. But if I go past that 3 months without selling it, what I do, not every dealership works this way, but what we do at our dealer is we take that bike, it falls off of KTM flooring, which is actually, with KTM, it's held through Wells Fargo in the United States. KTM has a deal worked out with the Wells Fargo bank to finance their flooring. And then, so it falls off of Wells Fargo. And then what I do is, instead of paying for it out of the dealer's cash reserve, we switched it over to People's floor plan. So we go with People's Bank. And the reason we do that is, if we stayed with Wells Fargo, the interest rate's like 11%. Switching it over to People's Bank switches it over to like 9%. So we save a little bit of money there. And then obviously, once it goes onto that, we call it juicing. And so every month I have to pay flooring fees. And we have to pay that 9% every month. 9% of $9,000 every month. On just that one unit, I have 250, 260 units in stock, and you multiply it all up, you end up with $30, $40, $50,000 a month flooring fees. So we're motivated to move these things at this point. But when that happens, when it falls off the Wells Fargo and goes on to my people's flooring, or in certain circumstances like Royal Enfields or other, like if it's like kids' dirt bikes from KTM, they're cheap enough that we don't switch them onto a different floor plan. We just pay them. We just pay them out of the dealership's cash reserve. So then after that fact, we own the bike. And then I'm not going to lose my profit margin that way. But it's hard to swing that much cash reserve because you're talking about millions here. You're talking $3-4 million I'd have to swing, and that's a lot of cash to float around.
Yeah, you guys probably have a couple $100,000 just in those big bikes.
In the big
touring
bikes, I got about $1 million.
Yeah,
in just in Indian big bikes.
I knew it'd be a lot. Yeah.
So you know, just Indian big bikes, it's like $1 million sitting there. So that's kind of how it all works. So KTM is responsible for the flooring on that unit, but only for a short period of time, like 3 months, 4 months time. And then it's written off their books. It's no longer their responsibility. So what KTM can do in this circumstance of having, you know, a year's worth of inventory, even though they don't technically have a year's worth of inventory in their control and their responsibility, what they could do with anything they do have sitting around in their warehouses is they could just send them out to dealers, right? Like they could just shove these things down dealers' throats, and they could just get all that off their books. That is called channel stuffing. That is something that the CEO of Triumph Motorcycles about a decade ago got put in prison over. And I think he's still serving prison time for it. It's called channel stuffing is highly illegal. So that's not something that would be good for business. So people talking about like, oh, KTM's in hot water, like as if it's the only company to have ever been in hot water. Right now, Nissan's going through the same thing. Dodge is going through the same thing. As far as motorcycling goes, Ducati went through it just a few years ago before they got bought out by Audi. MV Agusta's been through it several times, but that's MV and they're a small company. Harley Davidson went through it with Eagle Mark Finance. You know, there's just all these businesses have their ups and downs, and KTM they overextended themselves. But looking at the financials, like I've seen a lot of their financials, they only overextended themselves for the short term. They did not overextend themselves for the long term. They just kind of got caught with their pants down in the short term.
Yeah, they just made a few too many bikes, and the market started slowing down, and so they just ended up with a bunch of stuff that they didn't need right away.
Where I can respect the Japanese, this is one thing that the Japanese is very good at, is they can market forecast, and the Japanese don't get tempted. The Japanese stay the course. So like through COVID, there was this anything outdoors related just sold like crazy. Like freaking, I said this the other day, but the like Bass Pro Shops ran out of kayaks. Anything outdoors was just selling out like just nuts. Oh, here's another business, outdoors business, post-COVID, going out of business, REI.
Oh, wow.
REI is like getting ready to file for bankruptcy.
Whoa.
And so people talking about KTM doing it. I'm like, look at all the companies doing it right now. And the reason my personal reasoning to it is they all got greedy through COVID. And I mean, hey, we all did. All of us, every person, every business, everything. There was massive amounts of free money floating into the economy. Every one of us got stimmy checks. You got a stimmy check. You got multiples, right? How many stimmy checks did you get? 2, 3 of them? And you were taking that money and you were blowing it on dumb crap. Businesses were having all this money come in because all these people were blowing it on all the dumb crap. And all these businesses were coming in, and we were panicking trying to find crap to sell because everything sold. So we brought in new brands. You know, up at CCM, they brought in SSR so they could have little kids' dirt bikes, and they sold them
like
by
crazy
the ton. It was insane.
I remember seeing a guy pull out of there with a trailer, like a flat trailer, with like 8 of them on there.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing with
Dude,
all these?
They said it was just like, it was craziness. And they said they had to come up with a new process for selling them because they were selling them so fast.
Yeah.
And they were just, because the people weren't financing them. Obviously, they're only like $1,000 or something. Most people are just swiping their credit card.
Yeah.
And people are just swiping credit cards, buying up all these freaking SSRs.
I personally know at least 5 or 6 people that have SSRs.
And that's what you were. The reason CCM brought that brand in was specifically just to fill the empty showroom, because our showrooms were empty otherwise. June of 2021, my dealership had 6 bikes in stock.
Wow.
That's a showroom that fits 300 motorcycles.
Yeah.
We had 6 bikes in stock.
Man, I couldn't imagine what it looked like.
It was insane.
So much room for activities.
I know. What you guys do with all that room?
People would like, I'm like, dude, I'm about to bring my roller skates in, start a roller skating rink.
I could have walked my muddy boots through all of that showroom. Oh my gosh.
So like, you know, even as a small business, we were getting greedy. We were trying to find anything we could to sell because everything was selling. Well, KTM, what they did was they tried to build a bunch of crap to sell it because there was so much demand. The Japanese did not. The Japanese stayed the course.
You said, they're out of stock now?
Well, Japanese only made as many as they make.
Yep.
And they did not make more to adjust for the temporary demand. KTM did adjust for the temporary demand, along with a bunch of other companies, car companies specifically. How bad are the car companies doing right now? How about all the RV companies? They're all doing terrible right now. Razors, Polaris Razors, they're doing terrible. And so a lot of this stuff just got overbuilt. They just built way too many units because COVID demand for 2.5, 3 years, the demand was so high, we were selling it before it got built, literally. And like I had a backlog of like, at any given time, at least 30 to 40 motorcycles on order that weren't built yet.
Man.
So KTM got caught with their pants down because they were trying to rush all these bikes to market. They were trying to get all these bikes built and put in dealer showroom floors because at the time they were selling. But then 2024 happened and the economy slowed down for a number of reasons. And when that slowed down, the demand dropped off. They still had all this supply. Plus, they'd still had all these contracts to run out with employment, with unions, with their suppliers, all these things that they had to keep production going.
They had to order parts to build bikes with, and so there's a delay between every part of the process. So
in the supply chain of things, there's this lag to it, and by the time the final thing hit, where it was just like, okay, it's basically what happened is their creditors, KTM's creditors, came to them and were like, okay, give us a payment on all this debt you have to finance all this production. And KTM was like, whoa, that it's kind of like getting a credit card bill in after you went like Christmas shopping like crazy and you're expecting your minimum monthly payment to be like $30 and the credit card's like, you spent $7,000. Your minimum monthly payment's like $180.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, dude, I only have like $100.
What happens to all these bikes?
So that's what where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm curious.
There's a couple of ways this can go. KTM is going to, they've already had one meeting between, and the way KTM is structured, there's multiple businesses over KTM that own parts of KTM, and then there's one business over all of that, just shell game to dodge taxes and stuff. But anyways, only KTM, which is far down the line and like lower down the line as far as the business structure goes, that's the only thing that's in hot water. Everything else is cool. It's no problem. They got plenty of money. So KTM has sat down with its creditors in one meeting so far and has kind of laid down the financials and starting to come to an agreement with their creditors. And then they got another meeting coming up January 20th to negotiate further. KTM has to raise like I think it's somewhere near $300 million. They need a cash injection to pay their creditors with. And that's not to pay back the loans. That's to basically keep the wheels spinning. And so either they're going to get a cash infusion from someone like Bajaj Motorcycles, Bajaj Auto, I think is the actual corporation name. Bajaj is an Indian manufacturer, and they're also the largest motorcycle manufacturer on earth. So they have plenty of cash.
Yeah.
If they needed to give a cash infusion, but if they do that, they'll own more market share of, or they'll own more, they'll have more ownership stake in KTM than maybe the other partners would want them to have. So that would be like part of the battle. And then as far as his inventory goes, that's up for debate. The judge that's overseeing this and the creditors may order KTM to liquidate. And if they order KTM to liquidate this current inventory, that means fire sales.
I'm getting a bike.
That means there will be gigantic rebates. So they already had gigantic rebates at the end of last year. We had a rebate sheet that because
they probably won't fire sale the bike you want.
Well, they did fire sale.
They did. They already did.
Yeah, the Super Duke. The Super Duke was the new 1390. I think it had like last month. I think we had $2,000 off.
Yeah, that's when. So last year when it went on rebate, when he hit me up, that's when I put the BMW up for sale.
And
I was trying to get the cash together to buy one.
In January, KTM and the Austrian brands, KTM Gas, Husqvarna, they pull all their rebates for some reason. I don't know why, but they do this. And they did it again this year, which was strange to me considering the current situation. But they pulled all the rebates. There's no rebates for KTMs right now for the month of January. I think all the rebates are going to come back in February, and I think they're going to come back strong.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt seeing a $20,000 Super Duke listed for $15,000, and I'm kind of hoping that they list a little bit less than that.
Yeah.
That would be
really cool.
That means you're both getting a new bike.
That means the BMW's going back online. So anybody that's listening that wants a nice, very clean white 2016 S1000R.
That's a little too loud.
I have the stock muffler for it. We got this. I will fix it up for you.
Didn't we cut that into pieces?
Don't worry about that, okay?
You guys got a welder.
Semantics, okay? It's all right.
You live
Yeah,
on the
he's got
west
a
side.
welder. Yeah.
You Westside that thing
Yeah.
together.
JB Wells, come on. Got that stuff in a tube. But no, I would love to have one. If they go down like that far, gosh.
And I've seen fire sales in the past. The wildest fire sale I saw was usually when a company goes out of business. Like Buell, when they went out of business, dude, you could buy, at the time, what was like a $12,000 bike. You get them for like $5,000.
Yeah.
It was crazy, the fire sales on Buells. Another one that I saw was after the 2008 collapse, and this was all the way in 2010. In 2010, that winter, going into 2011, Honda, like the Honda, you could buy a brand new CBR 1000 RR, but specifically it was only one color. It was the ugliest color. It was like certain panels were silver, other panels were maroon.
Oh, yeah.
I've
seen that one around.
Super ugly bike.
Yeah.
But you could get it for $8,000.
Yeah.
And
you could
they
buy
were-
fairings for it if you wanted to.
They were brand new, I think 2009s. I think they were brand new 2009s. You could order them from Honda. So you could just go up to your dealer and have your dealer, if they didn't have it in stock, your dealer could just order one of these bikes. And they were selling you, at the time, a CBR 1000 went for like 12 or 13 grand. And you could buy a brand new, a year and a half, 2-year-old bike for like, I think it was $8,000 even. And you could have a brand new CBR 1000. And that was another time I saw if you look at it on percentage terms, like it's a significant discount. And that was another time I saw a fire sold bike. So I'm kind of curious if these KTMs are going to do something similar, like, 30%, 40% off the bike. Like that's nuts.
That
Like
would be
that's
crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm hoping for a $15,000 or maybe even less Super Duke.
That would be cool. Man.
Well, really what I'm hoping for is an SMT, but
Yeah.
I love the SMT, man. Every time I look at that thing in the showroom, I'm like, man, I want that bike.
Yeah. Oh man, you guys got any adventure bike rides coming up?
Well, just like I said, Jessica's trying to plan that trip all the way down to Florida, and I'll probably ride down on the adventure bike to do that.
Yeah.
That'd be more of a touring ride. We know that that's not going to be a super exciting ride. It'll just be fun to go on a trip.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I was considering doing something different this year from the Cheeseman trip. Are you in that group, the Facebook group, the Smoky Mountain Riders or something? It's Cheeseman group without Cheeseman in it because Cheeseman doesn't do Facebook. They're all talking about going down this year, but they're talking as if Cheeseman's not coming, which has me curious. But anyways, I was thinking of something different. Instead of doing a Cheeseman ride, we do our own ride. We just, kind of go out and however many people we can get to come on it. If it happened to overlap with the Cheeseman group, we could ride some with them, I guess. But and I love those guys. Don't get me wrong. I do. If Cheeseman can't go, it kind of misses something. Cheeseman just kind of brings something that you can't replicate,
Yeah.
And those guys have kind of I don't know, they've kind of lost a step, man. These guys are all getting old, all the gray hairs. And they're all on dad bikes now, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every last one of them rides a dad bike now. So I was considering doing something like we trailer down, but we go to the Smokies. We bring sport bikes and scoots.
Mm-hmm.
And we do some sport biking and we do some scooting all around the mountains. Probably spend a long weekend. I would say
4 or 5 days.
4 or 5 days. 5 days is really fun because then you get some really great riding in, but you can also have some throwaway in there to where you don't have to do a ton of riding. You can come home early and just kind of kick back and
fart
chill
around.
Yeah, and I like having that time too.
Yeah. The 3 days pushing it because you want to go out and you want to get all that riding in.
Yep.
Like that one day I came back with the girls when we all went down. I kicked myself in the butt because it sounded like a good ride, but I was so beat. I'm like, I gotta get back to the house. I'm gonna end up freaking low side my bike or something if I go and push it hard with these guys.
And if we go do a big scoot day, dude, scoot days in the mountains, it's next level. It is.
Well, we'd go to some
good.
places that you wouldn't go on a sport bikes. Because there's tons of places to go that you would never take the big sport bike on. So you get to see some of those places, which is nice.
Yeah, you get to basically do adventure riding on the scooter, and we'll go off road, on road. We'll do all kinds of crazy crap on the scooter.
That'd be cool.
And then we'll come back and kick it for the night. And then the next day, if we want to, we can head out on the sport bikes and hit up, go over to the Gap and run the Tail of Dragon a couple times. So I mean, you kind of just do everything.
You definitely have to go to the Dragon on the scooter.
On
the scooters, yeah.
100%.
And I want to get my picture taken by those guys.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to be on the scooter.
It's even better if you can take it where you're just dragging the ass of some other guy in front of you.
Yeah.
You're just on his tail.
Yeah.
Especially if it's some crazy Harley rider with some, he's got Barb on their back or whatever. They're playing on their phone or some shit like that.
And you're behind them just dragging
They blow all the
coming
corners
through.
in front of you. Yeah.
It's
Passing him on the inside
It's
corner.
great when you get to pass them and you come by them on a scooter because you just know. They're like, what the hell, man?
Yeah. Yeah, I just told Travis about that. I had a story like that down on 50. I come off of Kilby Road going to the west side, and I'm on the scooter and I'm hauling tail coming down through there right by 128. The light was red. I'm just watching the light, maxed out on my scooter. And there's a Harley sitting at the red light, and I just blew his doors off as I passed him because the light turned green right as soon as I was coming up to him, and I just boom right past him. Well, I didn't know this guy was some crazy old man Harley rider that liked to get down. Here he comes flying up on my ass, honking his horn, flashing his lights at me, And he's like, hell yeah, let's go. He's cutting through cars. He's going on the wrong side of the road. I'm like, what the heck?
This dude's insane.
Then we come to the next red light. He pulls next to me. He's like, dude, that scooter gets down. I'm like, I know, brother. Heck yeah. We had a little pound. I thought he was going to fight me, honestly. That's what I thought. I was like, this dude's we're about to throw it out at the next light or something. But no, he was really cool. Yeah, super cool guy. He just liked to ride hard on that thing.
So I've been kicking around that idea is if you'd be up for coming down on a trip like that, not a whole week, but like, just kind of a longer weekend or something.
Yeah.
That would be super cool and super fun. And in fact, if we did it, it depends on how we do it exactly, but you wouldn't even be obligated to stay the whole time. Like if you didn't have the time to stay, you could just come down for a portion of it, But hopefully you could stay the whole time. That would be super cool.
Yeah.
And it would be very inexpensive.
Yeah.
Extremely inexpensive. So
we're not getting the same house?
As the Cheeseman crew?
No, the house that we all had when we went down.
Oh, that one? No, because I didn't like the accessibility of it. That was the only problem I had with that house was the
accessibility. Think how fun that house would be getting up there at night on the scooters.
I just didn't like how dirty the sport bikes got and everything.
Yeah.
It was just stuff like that.
It trashed everything.
Yeah,
up there.
just because of that. That house was awesome except for the driveway.
Yeah.
That would be my only problem. I liked the house that we stayed in at one time. Its accessibility wasn't terrible and we didn't get too dirty. But I wouldn't be against even towing my camper down and us all staying in the camper.
That would be really fun.
That would be easy and affordable. And you have limited access to the mountains right now because of I-40 being closed. So that kind of screws things up too. So.
I think that might play into our favor because there might be a lot of people that choose not to vacation. So there might be good availability on spots.
I mean,
you saw the one house I sent you. That was like a pretty decent price for, I think I had it set for 4 days. It was like very reasonable. It was going to be like $200 or $300
a day.
It was going to be $200 or $300 per like group for the whole trip. So I think the whole thing in total was like $1,200 for 4 or 5 days. And so if it was split like 3 ways, that's only, $400.
Yeah.
So I think it wasn't bad at all, and that was a pretty good sized place in a like really good spot.
And we'll nail down the details of it, but that was one idea that I'd had was to do a mountain strip, but I think that would go well.
That would be cool.
Like it'd be like.
I'll have to look up when the poker run is. We should do it around the poker run.
Because
I'm going to the poker run, so I might as well be down there for it.
Like me, Travis, you, Nick, and maybe Dustin. Dustin's so hard to.
Yeah, he's hard to nail down to a text.
Like, dude, and I'd like to have him come. I think he'd be a good addition.
Yeah, he would have some great stories for this podcast.
Oh yeah,
I know that for a fact.
It's Danger Dustin.
Yes.
We got to get him on sometime.
Yeah. I've only ridden with him, maybe 4 or 5 times.
And it's always wild.
I have a story for each time. That's how wild it is every damn time I've been out with him.
Like he lives up to the name Danger Dustin.
Yeah.
He didn't give that name to himself. There's only
a handful of guys I've ridden with once or twice, and I have like a whole elaborate story for each time I've ridden with them. It's like, what's that guy's name? Big Chris or Big
BC?
BC, yeah. Him. Got a story for him and his son when they were riding the katana down there. Those dudes were railing. And then Josh, the guy we were talking about.
Yeah, Sturdivant.
First time I ever seen somebody drag elbow on the street. I'm like, what is going on with this guy?
Yeah, Sturdivant's he's a goon, man.
Yeah, he is.
He's a good dude.
Yeah. He mobs around the east side.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. I've been out there, ran into him a couple of times out there when I'm out there just being a street rat, just running around. I've ran into him before. He was on a Ducati.
Oh yeah, the hyper.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. He's out there mobbing on the sidewalks on a hyper motard.
All right, yeah, we'll figure that out though. But
yeah,
good to have you on, man.
Right on. Good to be here. This is a whole vibe.